Hello. Evening, Stuart. How are you? Good. Nice to hear. Is it still snowing outside? Even worse, is it still snowing inside? Not looked. No, me neither. Thankfully, I haven't got to go to work tomorrow because I'm working from home. So I haven't got to traipse down to Cardiff because that could be a bit tricky. I've seen on the way home on the M5 and on the A40, they had the gritters out. So that's going to be fairly horrible, I should think. You've got an echo. It's interesting because I haven't got any sound on here, so I can only hear nothing rather than the clock ticking. Matt's audio's behind you. I was going to be my suggestion. Is Matt watching as well? Good evening, Matt. How are you? Stop snowing here in sodding Chitbury. Well, you're not far away. Oh, Matt, I've got a project for you coming up shortly. You might enjoy something coming up. Probably won't get published or even finished until the end of February at the minute, but yeah. That's the one, Matt. We've got bits of it working. And I've got this gamepad I bought ages ago for playing around with. And yeah, we've got bits of it running. So we'll get that finished because, yeah. No nudge then. No, he's gone very quiet. I don't, he's, yeah, obviously a very busy man. So I don't know what the weather's like in Ireland at the minute, but I suspect he's probably busy digging buses out or something. Kev, how are you? Kev, I've got a project for you as well. Talking of it, Matt's just mentioned it, but the plan is to interface a modern Bluetooth handset to your 9-pin D socket. It should work on C64, VIC-20, Atari 2600, any of the Ataris, Amiga, but it won't work on the 464. But I'm working on that. Amstrad 464 has got no 5 volts on its 9-pin D because, well, Mr. Sugar didn't obviously consider it important. Cold in East Yorkshire, but at least it's stopped raining. Yeah, no, it was snowing here earlier. So I could open the blind and have a look outside, see if it's done anything. In fact, let me do that. No, it's just dark. White Sapphire. You can tell Odge I actually own an Avo look. Mildolf. Let it snow, let it snow. No, don't let it snow. He used a PIC to convert a PlayStation controller to it. Yeah, I'm going to use ESP32 because it's got all the Bluetooth business built in. So it just makes an easy job of it. Like I say, I've got bits of it working so far, so I'll get that finished at some stage. But I've got this telly here to do. So yeah, you've got a couple of Avos. They sort of home, I think, homing Avos. That one came from a local, well-known aerospace company that may or may not have made me redundant. But yeah. Because I think it still says Cheltenham B on it or something. But yeah, I think they all migrated out of there at some stage. But I've had many Avos over the years. I just don't find it a very user-friendly instrument. I mean, it's probably great back in the day, and we'll have a go at it in a minute. But yeah, much prefer a Fluke. Stuart's got one Avo 8. Kev, have you got an Avo 8? I used to have a Minor as well when I was a young man, but I think it succumbed. The Studio Workshop, good evening. How are you? Kev B, repaired an Avo the other day. Customers still want them doing. You can keep them as far as I'm concerned, but hey. The analog meter I do use from time to time is this Philips, which of course Philips became Fluke. We said use it from time to time and it's covered in dust. But that's a PM2505, a VAR meter, look. But that's quite good. In fact, what the battery's doing. Still bob on. But that's quite a useful thing. I think that's got a FET input, so it's quite high impedance. It's even calibrated, look. Ran out in 2010. Yeah, if I want to look at how something's trending, you can't really beat an analog meter, I suppose, especially if it's nice and slow. Avo 8 Mark V. Tend to use the Flukes more, though. Yeah, me as well. I did have a Mark V. I don't know what Mark this is. It'll say on it somewhere. No, it just says Model 8 on it. It's written on the dial normally, isn't it? Yeah, just Model 8. Made in England. Right down in Dover somewhere, I think. Mark 5s are good, but for God's sake, don't ever breathe on the flat flex. Ask me how I know. What is it? Just age? Has it gone brittle or what? Amstrad CPC conversion would be nice on the gamepad. The only problem I've got with that, Nobby Thunder, is the lack of 5 volts. And the easiest way to do it is I'll just put a diode in. So if we've got a USB supply, it doesn't backfeed into something that's got 5 volts on that pin. So, yes. Muric Hailstone, good evening. Tempted to get my Avo 8 repaired. Ohms range not working. You've got a battery in it. Ask Kev B. He's doing those still, so there we go. The old meters are fun to play with. Yeah. Stuart's Avo's a Mark III. I don't know what mark this is. Is this a Mark 1? Is there any experts amongst us that can tell me? Kev, yeah, very brittle now. Your flex, yes. Can you not put a ribbon in or something, or is it just all just a bit of a nose? Kev B looks like a Mark 1 or Mark 2. It's obviously getting on a bit. It's got a few knocks and dings out of it. Nurix has got a new battery, but is the new battery any good? I've been plagued by Duff batteries lately. The big square PP9, is it? But 2 or 3 of those arrived faulty recently and well outside of their expiry date. Kev B, you can hardwire it if you have the time and the patience. Yeah, not sure I'd bother. I'll tell you something I have got up there. I've got the old Avo sort of 2-pound valve tester, which is good. Cozy. Yeah, not too cold tonight. I left the door open earlier, which wasn't a good idea, but no, we're all right now, considering it was -1 when I got home. Good evening, Mr. Cottrell. For a 15-volt battery, use a stack of CR2023s. Now, last time I bought an Avo battery, which was probably 90s, I remember buying one, and it was in a case, and it came apart, and I'm sure it was just a stack of coin cells. Sometimes, though, you need a correct impedance across the voltage you're trying to read on some old kit. Certainly, so if you're going by the manual, say for this, it will presume you've got something that's sort of 10 kilo-ohms per volt, rather than your Fluke or whatever, which is going to be a meg or 10 meg, sorry. Chris Merriman, the Chris Merriman? To this day, yes, hello, Chris, how are you? You came up in conversation with somebody the other day, and I can't remember where, who I was talking to. To this day, I'm careful with the sockets used in the meter after blowing your fuse. I think I did try to electrocute you shortly afterwards, so there we go. Wasn't it a Grundig portable? The chassis, it was one of those with the chassis that went in on 2 wing nuts in the corner. And I think something contacted with the chassis and left the aerial socket live. Yeah. Recently had to mod an old Sony SCART sockets 5 volts feeding a switch to function in the blanking pin with reverse diode. Wasn't there also a mode on the later sets where there was a voltage window that triggered, not only did it put it into AV, but didn't it also trigger the aspect ratio as well? I seem to remember that. That was my nephew. Have I got a nephew? I don't think I've got a nephew, have I? I had a gold with an old meter, put ohms on there, upset the BSU I was having to go. Yes, quite. Fluke fuses are pricey, aren't they? Cousin, thin. Oh, Jeff! God, he became a lock keeper last time I'd heard. I mean, more unlikely bloke to heave lock gates about you've ever thought of. I don't quite know how true that is, but there we go. You've got to be a bit careful putting a meter on ohms across things. I used to abuse, what was Tandy's brand of instruments called? Micronta? I remember damaging one of those quite badly, discharging a couple of 100 volts into it. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was a Sony 125 volt rail. There you go. Ridiculous. I can remember that, and I can't remember I had a cousin. Amiga to work with Sony in its KFB in proper RGB mode. Don't think the Sony stuck to the proper SCART protocol. A lot of the smaller Sonys didn't have RGB into the SCART. A lot of sets didn't. Hitachi as well. They didn't have RGB on the SCART. Some did, some didn't. Micronta or Archer? Yeah, I'm sure this was a Micronta. Eventually killed it completely by discharging a tube into it. I think I was, what was it? No, it wasn't. Yeah, I was poking around some split diode Lopti trying to measure something, and yeah, attempted an arc that lit up 88 on the display. That was the end of that one. It did well though. I had another meter once. Again, a big 27-inch Sony, and the leads were in the voltage range, and yet somehow something broke inside, and I never looked at it. I chucked it straight in the bin. It was a Maplin Precision Gold meter, and trying to measure this HT rail on this Sony. Thankfully, there was a big bang. Again, it would have probably been 125 volts. There was a big bang, and thankfully the set shut down and no damage was done. But the meter was a dead short, like you were trying to measure current. I remember just taking the probes off it, dropping the meter in the bin, and getting the Fluke out. There we go. Mine had RGB into the SCART, but had to tie a couple of pins high with the resistors. I don't remember that happening. I have my Micronta that I got new in the 80s. I've got my Fluke that I got new in the 80s. Cost me over a week's wages. I got paid, well, in 1988, I was paid 86 quid a week, I think, as an apprentice, and it was more than that. Studio workshops away. Well, go easy and mind the weather. Can we have another look at your homemade telly sometime? Need some inspiration. Found out this evening was HT choke was arcing and upsetting the sink. Ah, yes, it's up there. It's deadly, but yeah, we'll have a go at that. I used to work for Maplin. The own brand meters did work to spec just. I don't remember them being particularly bad except for that one. Just wasn't a fluke. And they were sort of cheapish, I think. Didn't they do those unit ones too? UNIT or whatever on that? I see a lot of people using those on YouTube. I don't know, I've just sort of been spoilt by Fluke, I suppose, and put off by a lesser brand, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I've got two Flukes here. I mean, I've had that one since 1988. That's the one I bought with my week and a bit's money from Smith's Industries back in the day. Fluke 77. As you can see, it's been round the block several times, but still works absolutely beautifully. And in fact, this was calibrated sometime in the noughties. Lost its date, but yeah. Got a Fluke 87 Mark V as well here. These are good, but that row of sockets fails occasionally. And when you wind it around a current, it'll remind you to switch the leads around because there's some sort of sensing going on in there. But yeah, that's been very good. But the sockets, whatever senses in there, I've cleaned this one once or twice, I think. And yeah, I did have some spare, a set of spare sockets that I managed to get out of somebody once. Maybe Fluke still sell them, I don't know, but they've been bought recently, I think, haven't they? UNI-T, like the one Big Clive uses. Yes, that's the ones. I'm sure they're very good. Stuart Wilkinson has a yellow one of them. The 87 terminal panels are obsolete now. KJ, good evening, sir. Or madam, don't know. Anyway, KJ, hello. Ashley, a later Maplin meter modified with a speech synthesizer. Oh, how brilliant. Fluke 23 from RS. Can't go wrong. There are some Chinese domestic market Flukes, I think. They don't seem to have current on them, but I've seen them sort of as a grey import occasionally. My UNI-T is actually pretty good, very reliable so far. Glad to hear it. Let me know when it gets as old as that or when you Fluke 77. I think Tandy were the first with talking meters. I don't think I've ever seen one. That is useful though. Yeah, you could be poking around on something really quite delicate and not having to look at it. That's a good idea. Tony, good evening. How are you, sir? For the good old days when Maplin wasn't a toy shop and you had places like HRS. Yeah, Maplin was, by the time when you wanted 4 1K resistors and only stock 3, yeah, you knew the writing was on the wall then. But, I mean, ultimately the business failed, didn't it? But was it making any real money selling parts? Trouble is, it's footfall, isn't it? Because if it hadn't been for Maplin and me walking in to buy, I don't know, half a dozen BC 547s or something, I'd never have seen Arduino and picked up that, or PIC even. I think my first PIC stuff came from there. In fact, it did. It was a Velleman kit, if you remember those. And Macau is another of Clive's favourites. HRS. What did HRS stand for? Willow Vale. See Me. Now, Kev, do you know what See Me stands for? even CPC before it started becoming ridiculous. It did get the nickname of from the, I think it was the Willow Vale rep. What's his name? Clive. He's still around somewhere. He's on Facebook, I think. But the Willow Vale rep started calling them the Car and Plumbing Company. Small elephant and mammoth elephant. Not what the SEAMI rep told me, but close enough. He told me small elephants and medium elephants. White Sapphire agrees with me, you see. There we go. Small elephants and medium elephants. What a name for a company. Now, do you remember Charles Hyde and Sons? Because they were a car dealership, I believe, that span off and did telly bits as well. I mean, it's just the story of some of these companies is amazing. Tandy were indeed the first to do a talking meter. Some of the Chinese meters now have speech output, basically clones of the UNIT. 30 quid, and they're surprisingly accurate. I have got from our friends in China for an upcoming project a load of these sort of self-powered 7-segment meters, and yeah, accuracy wasn't on the list of requirements. They were awful. That's what it looks like. It's just a little 3-digit 7-segment thing, but they are woefully inaccurate, and they all vary from one another as well. It's not just rubbish accuracy across the board. I've just noticed there's a little pot on the back. Good, maybe we can sort that. Charles Hyde are official for a lot of brands. Yeah, Philips, Ferguson, Hitachi. It was SEAMI Hitachi. SEAMI might have been Hitachi as well. I spent quite a while working for a Hitachi dealer, so we sort of got stuff straight from there. And then, of course, if you wanted Sony bits, you had to go to, what was it, SES, Specialist Electronic Services. Charles Hyde were in Pocklington, about 10 miles from me. We actually bought the last 2 G6 Lopties. Yeah. When was that? White Sapphire. When was the last G6 Lopti to be sold? Might have been into the 80s, I guess. SEAMI were good for Panasonic and Technics bits. That's right, they were. Sony were a nightmare. They were a nightmare. Those horrible, expensive transistors. Was it a gate turn off? GTOs. Put 25 quid worth of GTOs into a 1810. Switch it on, leave it running for 10 minutes, turn around, bang. Ugh. GCS, gate controlled switch, that was it. Awful, awful things. White Sapphire, about 81, 82. I'm surprised that wasn't a little bit longer. It's just a problem with it. You know, you see people like, not so much Shango, but people in the States, and they seem to be able to find everything. I mean, I'm a terrible hoarder, don't get me wrong, and I don't like to chuck things out, but if anybody ever needs something I've got and I'm never going to use, you know, they might as well have it. I'd rather it was sitting something, doing something, than sat on my shelf gathering dust. But yeah, it's the Americans, they've just got, I don't know, they must have warehouses full of stuff and tubes and valves and transformers, because they always seem to be able to get these things. What we used to do in the Sony KV2000 that used a BU508. I remember reading about that in Television Magazine and thinking, what a good idea. And then I looked into it and decided I wasn't going to do any more 1810s or 2000s. Yeah, you just, yeah, take it somewhere else. How to destroy hundreds of pounds worth of bits at the flick of a switch. Oh, it's always got them to run for a little while, Kev. They always ran for a while. But yeah, you'd leave it on, turn your back, come back 10 minutes later after having a brew and pop. Never again. Was it the 1820 had that little east-west sort of thyristor in it? Thyristor? They were expensive as well, but you could normally sort those out. You reckon Michael Dramfield has almost every part ever made? I think you're probably right. I love his channel. It's absolutely brilliant. The bits where Odge has visited and just stuff. Amazing. Absolutely fabulous. And the fact he's still having a pop at flat screens. I mean, I'll do the odd one for a mate, but what a horrible job. I'd be too worried about breaking it. Thankfully, I don't do it for a living anymore, so yeah. A few of the American YouTubers seem to have a local parts store. If only there was some here in South Wales. Whereabouts in South Wales are you? Because I work in Cardiff. I've come back from there this evening. The Normandy portables had the horrible thyristor output stage. Now, I think I must have been a bit of a glutton for punishment because I was always quite good at those. They were, you go and buy your car full of bits, car full of second-hand ex-rental tellies, and you couldn't buy a portable for love nor money. There were all these Normandy things. People used to call them the Normandy. Got me eye in with those. Same with Philips because they were always rather cheap. And I just sat down, stripped one down, and got on with it. Cardiff, unfortunately, yeah. I work in Rumney. It's wet. I was at MD's place dropping some stuff off Forge. Should be a museum. He has everything and more there, doesn't he? It's incredible. Sarah Jane, I think Glasslinger has a good selection of valves, everything from tiny valves up to transmitter valves. Yeah, and what they haven't got, they make. Incredible. I know Mendy Normandy. Their video recorders were the sort of Ferguson JVC thing, weren't they? They were all right. Everybody did those. A couple in here somewhere. Down there, I think. That'll be a video one day, won't it? There's a telly down there. What is that? There's so much kit in here. Oh, no, it isn't. It's a 3V16. Yeah, I didn't mind the Dormen stuff. It was all right. I remember one with a non-double insulated mains lead that used to see every now and again. Generally came in a 16-inch. And it had touch tuner. And if they didn't work, if the touch tuner didn't work, you took the mains plug off, flipped the live and neutral round, put it back in, and it would work. I remember somebody showing me that, ex-Radio Rentals guy, I think. And he said, switch the live and the neutral round of the plug. And I'm just going, yeah, right. Some of the Radio Rentals guys locally used to pop in for a brew quite regularly, which was nice. Especially if I wanted to borrow their B&K tube blasting box. Tart up one of my old rentals. Those tiny little acorns, talking of little valves, those tiny little acorn valves always fascinate me. I might have one or two. The valve drawers down there and boxes of the thing place, but might have one or two. Maybe we should warm the cathodes on one Monday and see what happens. There was a range of audio amps used New Vistas at one stage, didn't they? Claimed they were something special. Obviously, it's an audio amp. Talking of valves, I have bought some of these off of eBay. Musical Fidelity makes those amps about £10,000 from audio amp. I mean, just madness. I bought some of these off eBay. It is a tiny little boost converter. You poke 12 volts in one end, and hundreds fall out of the other. And it's a it's a bipolar supply, so it's plus and minus whatever you set it to. And I bought 3 of them. One of them works, but it's quite really. And in fact, that's what my Avo is set up for. I mean, you can see that, but that's on 500 volts scale. And if I give it 12 volts, yeah, we're at 400 and something. What are we at? 445 volts. It's upright, so it probably won't be very accurate. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. But that's going to feature in a forthcoming project. I was going to devise my own little boost converter, but I saw those and I thought, well, they're only like 2 or 3 quid each, so I thought I'll have a few of those. But yeah, two of them are junk. I'll put them under the magnifying glass later and see what it is. But it's fairly straightforward on there. You've just got 2 rectifier diodes. It's obviously a transformer as well. And I'm wondering if I take that metal strap off, where the thing would be isolated from the primary. It might be. I'll play around with it. But there's a UC something or other switch mode controller there, and an op amp as feedback. A little regulator there for if you're running it above, I think it said above 16 volts, and you can switch the power supply about to what it's expecting. But it's even got a fuse in it. Look, got a mini blade car fuse and an LED and remote shutdown. And it'd be great if it worked. I mean, the 1 works, but 2 don't. I've raised my concerns with eBay. How long have I worked in Cardiff? Not very long. I've worked there, just coming up to 12 months, actually. I don't remember C-Marks. No, they were audio, visual, and electronic shop, now long gone. Haven't they always? Still lucky enough to have one in Cheltenham called NP Harding. Norman. It's mainly run by his son now because Norman's getting on a bit. Stephen, very good friend of mine. Going in there since I was 14, which is more years than I care to remember. Ashley Cox, they've recently been reviving the range. They do a DAC, a phono stage, and various other bits now, and a 9 grand turntable with an elastic band driving the platter. Matt, I bought a bulk of little boosters the other day, like used in the C64 saver. Now, I've succumbed to those recently. Watch out, there are some fakes out there that don't do the current, Matt. So load it down a little bit. Anybody know of a keyboard for a Commodore SX64 at a price that's not stupidly ridiculous? Is yours broken, Kev? If it is, you can buy a membrane. Thus, that's just giving the address away to the world, isn't it? Yeah, they do membranes for them still, but if you want a keyboard, you might be in trouble. 1 membrane. Very good. That's the lovely people at RWAP, purveyors of excellent retro computing bits. So Kev needs an SX64 keyboard. If you've got one, I've got an SX64 to go through. Broken disk drive, US keyboard, as in unserviceable, not as in American. And you know what else is wrong with it? Oh, I think it had some corruption on the graphics. It probably want a VIC as well. Unfortunately, it didn't come with a keyboard or cable. The cable, my goodness, that is, it's oddball if memory serves. It's only about that long. Trouble is, Kev, they didn't make many of them, did they? It didn't run for very long. They only ran for, what, 12 months, I should think, in production? Can't be many of them out there. Monitor's always rubbish as well. They use that horrible grainy sort of low definition tube, sort of similar as my monitor that you can't see up there. There's a little, is it Goodman's, I think? No, Genexa was another Tandy brand, wasn't it? A Genexa colour portable that sits on the shelf up there. In fact, you might be able to see the cow running on it, but it's very, very washed out with the lighting. One lad at school had one. I was extremely jealous. I'll bet. I forget where I bought mine from. I have no idea. It might have even been a car boot sale, you know. The chipmunk. Hello, hello, hello. How are you? Morning from Australia. Good morning. My in-laws are over at the moment and they live in Broome. The top left-hand bit somewhere, I think. But yeah, they're enjoying the weather here, I can assure you. So bad, they've cleared off to Austria. Oh, no need for an apology. I just wonder. Yeah, obviously I don't want to tread on John Joe's toes, but yeah, I wonder if we should sort of schedule one in for Saturday afternoon or something. I don't know. Time to break out the blood orange cider. Not really compatible with me, but you work away. Oh yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. You're right over on the right-hand side. I once did a job on the side and nearly got caught without a visa in a place called Margaret River. There we go. I had to go out there and not install a transmitter because that would have been against my visa. John Joe's toes are wide. I know, and I just don't want to be in competition with the man. He's done such a good job, especially these live things. I do not want to, because I want to enjoy his streams as well as the rest of us. You know, I don't want to be in competition with him. Well, I'm sure that, you know, there's enough time and doodah. No, you won't be good in the mid-afternoon. Sorry, Chipmunk. You know, there's enough time. We can spread it out. That you know, there we are. There is enough time for a few telly-related streams, I'm sure. Talking of tellies, you will notice that I am accompanied this evening by this TV22. And you'll notice it's missing its knobs because I can't find them. This is the one that came, if you've been following me for far too many years, you know, I used to have a website. I've still got a website, but it's on there. This is the one from A Tale of Two TV22s, where I had a problem where a friend of mine who had previously restored his tubes, well on the way now, but his line transformer failed. So I took it out, sent it to Ed Dinning, who rewound it, and Judy sent it back, very nice too. And it didn't work. We knew the set was working prior to the line transformer. In fact, it was working when it was when I took the transformer out. It was just the collapse of the width as it got hot. But it's I had to take the transformer out of this one, swap it into that to prove the point that his set was all right. Then I took the transformer out, and after Ed rewound it probably 2 or 3 times, he said, look, he said, this can't, I said, I've done loads of these. And he said, every now and again, one trips me up because it's a little bit odd. Send me yours and I will make 2 identical. So I sent my one to him and he rewound my friend Colin's transformer identically to this one, fitted it, worked perfectly. It's still working to this day, all well and good. But that is as far as this one ever got. So I had to sort of do a base restore on this, and it was quick, slipshod, just to prove the thing was going to run. And I was hopefully going to swap the RF deck out, but it was different, as is their way. So that wasn't compatible. This is quite a late one, I think. But the transformer is beautiful in it. And the CRT, when I first tested the CRT on the leader, I didn't have a B&K at the time, and I don't think the B&K will test a triode tube, although somebody did query me on that the other day. I must, when I take this apart again, I will put the B&K on it and see what it realizes. But this tube end stops the leader. And I thought, oh, blast, it must have a short on it or something. But no, it is like new. Chipmunk, I worked for 6 months in the USA without realizing I wasn't meant to. Yes. When I went to the States, I was a consultant, which was a way to work around it, apparently. Not off to a good start. I'm sorry to hear that. That's bad news. Well, hope 2024 gets better for you. Matched by hand, so apart from... Yes, this is very true. Although there are enough bits of these around. Ian Gregory, any thoughts on repairing Sky HD Plus boxes? The last one I did was my own, and it depends what's wrong with it. If it's power supply related, they're generally quite reliable. Mine's still going, but the wife keeps banging on that half the things don't work on it anymore, like the app's been discontinued and stuff, and we really should upgrade. Anyway, I was telling you about that. So that needs putting back together. Oh, in fact, here is the output transformer. As you can see, even in that state, that's actually working really well, but be careful of the old very fine wire that earths the EHT winding there. If you cut through that, it's a nose to put it back together again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the old pickling jar with a load of white spirit just to get rid of that tar, and then I shall varnish it. So that's a job to be getting on with. Generally soak them in it for about a week. Generally softens the tar enough. Wife was like, "Ooh, you could be deported." Never actually managed to get deported yet. I'm sure people thought about it. I wonder how it works in Europe now. Can you? I mean, you can't. Presumably, you'd need a work visa to work in Europe. I mean, I used to work in France an awful lot down at Kness in Toulouse. Yeah, and I do have to go to the States again. Probably June for a launch. So here's. Can't receive certain channels. No signal. Been told it's to do with LNB switching voltage. Les Docs. Hello, Dos. Hello, Les. How are you? She got deported from the UK. She was American. Oh dear. Yeah, you'd need proper paperwork. I've been home for, ever since the dreaded Brexit happened. I've not had the opportunity to work abroad really. So not that I particularly want to now. To do a bit in Italy, but that was just before COVID all stopped all of that anyway, I suppose. Yeah, not something I've got to worry about, but yeah, I do have to go to the States, but the company will sort all the relevant paperwork out, I presume. I have issues with the UK immigration to this day. Well, I have issues with the US immigration because I was working in New York State. Where was I? Where they make Quaker Oats. Anyway, I was there, and not Quaker Oats. Same company, make toys, Fisher Price, same place. And I was doing some work there. And just as I was about to come home, that weekend, I was supposed to fly home on something like a Tuesday. And that weekend, the place froze. And the whole of the side of the eastern seaboard froze. So the only way I was going to escape was the company said, right, we need you back. We're going to send a car. And I thought, well, you can't drive home. Where are we going to go? Flights were cancelled all over the place, but I could get out of Toronto, you see, in Canada. So they drove me around the lake and into Canada. And when I entered Canada, I didn't leave the States. So a few years later, I had to get to Albuquerque, and that was just a nightmare trip from start to finish. It took me 50-something hours to get to Albuquerque. It was a right nightmare. But the worst bit is when I landed at LAX, and if I ever find out who sent me into LAX, they're going to get a piece of my mind. But anyway, And I had to queue for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And I presented all my paperwork, which I thought was correct. And then the security bloke said, we have a problem. Yeah, your visa's valid, etc. Where have you just come from? I said, well, Heathrow. And he said, well, he said, you never left the States last time. So anyway, I had to explain my actions and how I left the States without signing the relevant paperwork and making it into Canada. But we just drove straight through the border. Anyway, nightmare crossing Canadian border, license to print money. Wouldn't know. I just drove straight through, or was driven straight through. Those who made Windows XP's UI. It was the last decent Windows, wasn't it? XP. It's when I gave up with it when it went to whatever it was after that. No, that wasn't who I was working for. No, I have never worked for those. Overstayed, yes. I had overstayed by something like 8 years. So presumably they were somewhat worried, but I explained it all. We were all right. And unfortunately, because it took a little while to explain it to various very upset officials, I'd missed my connecting flight, and that's why that trip just went horribly wrong. Kev, good night. 2C with pat testers and some other nasty jobs needing your attention. To me, they'd be filed in the bin. Good luck with that. Had to go to the office. Thought they were going to do a strip search. Well, that's it. In fact, Ian, you'll know very well who sent me there. Made it to Canada, okay. Guess, yeah, that was it. I mean, I'd obviously come home, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to get back from Heathrow, would I? Anyway, they were happy in the end. Second, it's, yes, I'm sure it is, Chipmunk. My wife always used to, how do I put this without it sounding bad? My wife used to own a nightclub. And at the end of an evening, she used to take any cash they had, put it in her handbag and take it home for banking, you see, not wanting to leave it in the premises overnight. So you can imagine what was on some of those banknotes and therefore in her handbag. So every time we used to fly abroad, she'd test positive for drugs every day, swab her handbag and beep, 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 off it'd go. And yeah, she was fairly well used to that. In the end, she ended up taking a different handbag. My father-in-law as well, God rest him, he always used to get stopped for explosives because he always used to wear the same coat he used to go shooting in. So he'd have had gun cartridges in his pockets. Bless him. The more you try to explain, the worse it sounds. Yep. Treated like a criminal even though you haven't done anything. I was also marched at gunpoint on 2 occasions through Riyadh Airport. I'll tell you about that another time, but that was that ended up being very good. Stories of traveling. I used to travel an awful lot with various jobs, and yeah, I spent a long time working in Saudi Arabia, which is an interesting place to want to work. I don't think I'd do it again now. I was a younger man. Chipmunk, my grandmother managed to get a bag of random white powder through UK customs in the 70s. It was icing sugar. Now, I used to work with a bloke called Sandy. Sandy was a proper RAF type with a handlebar moustache. And he was a wonderful guy to work with because he didn't take any rubbish from anybody. And he had it was as liquids had just been banned on aircraft, so you couldn't take anything. And he goes, oh, and he was a Scottish guy. And well, I need to take some deodorant with me. So he decided to decant some talcum powder into white Ziploc bags. I mean, he was in his late 50s, early 60s then. But yeah, that was That was a funny moment. Chris, always have clean luggage bags just for international travel. Naughty boy. You should have been here earlier. Jeff, how are you? How's the content going, Jeff? And Happy New Year. What else I've got to show you, really, or yak on about? We've done the Bluetooth thing, and we've done the high voltage thing. I ought to pick these converters apart and see what's going on with them. Got the wrong glasses on for this. Bear with me. If I have my inspector's hat on, I'll tell you something for nothing. This will not fly. I think that's the problem. That little regulator is... Yes. They've been to the school of soldering where they sort of put the board at one side of the bench and sort of fling solder at it, I think, but until it works. They failed on 2 of them. Interesting little board, though. I saw recently, where I first saw these was on, I think it was a Hackaday article. Hi from Carol. Hello, Chrissy's mum. Bless her. She's still working for the council? If so, I need a word. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, this converter I first saw on a Hackaday simple oscilloscope thing. And they said it was isolated, but it isn't. It's referenced around. Something to be aware of until we play with that. When we landed in Melbourne in '73, my sister had a large baby doll, which mum was carrying. Border Patrol asked why there were only 3 children on the parcel. And then the doll's head fell off. Story is me, by the way, in case anybody cares. Wife tried to join me here before she was my wife. Gatwick were, yes, they certainly can be. Friend of mine ended up having to get married so he could keep his girlfriend in the country. And sadly, much it lasted 30 odd years, so it wasn't bad. He almost threw up. Ended up moving stateside, probably a good idea. I need that eyepiece thing. RS. Not expensive, about 12 quid. This one, years old now, as you can see. It used to have 2 plastic things on it. Now it's got a nut and a bolt on one side because the plastic thing broke. You sort of get these ones as well. And I think this was an eBay job, but it's heavy, which is fine, you know. My neck's still got some strength left in it, but the other thing is they all come with interchangeable lenses, so you can have various lenses. And the other thing, of course, I do is the repair shop special where you've got double glasses for zoom mode. But yeah, there we go. Don't get old, folks. That's the answer there. Ashley Cox, my parents were on a flight back from Tunisia with a family-sized bag of crisps and a carry-on. The pressure at 33,000 feet caused the bag to explode, an almighty bang. Gatwick are responsible for many marriages. I should think they're quite responsible for a few divorces as well. Jeff, my dad was an electrician and he totally had that. Yeah, they're not new, especially the grey one. That's been around for donkey's years. Never had anything exciting happen traveling abroad. It's just long and dull. People used to say to me, you know, you get to go to all these marvellous places. Oh, it must be fantastic. And it isn't. You're working. It's just a pain, except for, you know, you don't know where the pub is and the chances of getting a decent curry are slim and just never any good. The only one good thing I did do once, I was working for one particular company, and they sent me to service a ground station in the south part of the North Island in New Zealand, because I was the nearest service engineer they had that hadn't quit. So anyway, we got on a plane and toddled off out there. And just before I left, another division of the same company said, we've got a ground station for Inmarsat in another, that was Inmarsat, that's right, in the north part of the North Island. Could you do that while you're there? And I said, yeah, send me the documentation, I'll go and do it. So anyway, they sent me the ground station instruction manual, how to fix it. And I went, yeah, no problem, I'll go over there and sort that. And I looked through this manual and I said, it's not much to it. And I said, as long as the IF's working, which it must be because it'll be shared amongst many customers, there should, this is like 2 days work and you've booked me. I said 3 days if it goes badly wrong. So you've booked me for 7 working days here. And he goes, yeah, but I know what your boss is like. You'll have a look around earlier there. And I did. I had an amazing time walking through the rainforest, this Angel Falls. Oh, it's beautiful. Anyway, it was the only time I've ever really had a sort of bit of a holiday. Have an RS trade counter up the road. Lucky you, that must be handy. Yeah, I might do some surfing. They're about, I don't know, 15 quid. I've recently bought another 3 sets for the people at where I work now because they didn't have anything. And I said, this is easy, it's lightweight, static sensitive, all the rest of it. So, yeah. And I noticed 2 of them have been pinched already. His eyes just went AWOL at the age of 47. I've worn glasses since I was 14. And I have to say, in the last couple of 3 years, it was going south fast. But, yeah, the last 3 years, it's all sort of steadied out again. So I suspect that might be the other problems messing me about. But, yeah, I haven't had to have a new prescription for 3 years now. So that's good. Most exciting thing I remember while travelling was to smuggle some lumps of granite out of Scotland into England. You've been rustling granite. We used to rustle pizzas into Stroud years ago because they didn't have a decent pizza place. But there we go. Mind you, Cheltenham hasn't got a decent pizza place anymore. Councils could be rude words. Oh, what happened there? Have I missed that bit? Hang on, let me have a scrolly up. I just wish them in the council would let me do things. That's my problem. I've mentioned that before. But anyway, Carol Merriman, take note. I'm joking. Now I'm the wrong side of 45. I find myself doing the double glasses thing too. I only saw it on Repair Shop. I'd never thought of it before, but it does. It works remarkably well. Inmarsat, yeah, it was Inmarsat D+, D originally, but then D+. A staggering 14 bits per second, I seem to remember. But the transceivers were tiny. Failing eyesight is the only reason I'm glad I'm already blind. Yeah, and my hat's off to you, Ashley. I think Colin told me. And I went to college with a kid that was blind, and he used to do stereos and hi-fis, just like the rest of us did. RS trade counter is handy for sure, but they're not what they used to be. The trade counter is now Bank of, yeah, but the problem is I find with RS is the last couple of years, I mean, you could guarantee, all right, they were a little bit more expensive, but if they said they had stuff in stock, they had it in stock, it would turn up on the map the following day. And because I used to spend a fortune with them, I got free postage. So it actually wasn't too expensive. You knew you were getting good stuff. But now I don't know what they're playing at. I really don't. I mean, I've spent probably hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds in there over the years. But it's, yeah, they're just not what they used to be. RS, take note. He stole the stone of scone. She stole the stone of scone. Scone? Butter or jam first? Jake, if I was the council, I wouldn't trust you, Dos. Look, I've got architects doing this thing. Thanks. The council are your servants, not the other way around. If only you could talk to them. Does the little cabinet TV on the background still power on? Is that some other kind of gizmo? Now, Jeff, we did mention this a minute ago before you were here, but it would do. It's got a lot of perished rubber wiring in it that needs to be renewed, which is why it's on the bench, because it was working 5 or 6 years ago. Then I had to take this transformer out to prove a point. I've got to refurbish that, put it back in, and then it should work. So that'll be on a video at some stage. But no, it does work very well. And the CRT in it is a Brahma. I said CRT, folks, because Jeff is over the other side of the pond. I have the last ever paper catalogue, Chipmunk. How many volumes did it come in? They used to send one to everybody in the workshop. These box crates of RS catalogues would turn up. Mechanical, electronic, and there was other ones, wasn't there? Building maintenance. Oh, it was just madness. RS got too involved with their own brand stuff. As good as it is, people still want the branded stuff. Now, I have a slight problem with some of RS's RS Pro capacitors that are not as good as they could be. And I'm not one for spending a lot of money on certain capacitors if there's a cheap one that'll do it, but I've had some fail, notably the coupling capacitors for Lin Axis and not the Wakonda. What's the other one? The ordinary Lin power supply rubbish, but I've had several of them measure open. Chris, she finished there, and this is your mum. Finished there in the 90s, went back to uni, second career as an occupational therapist, long since retired. We're both northwest of Cardiff now. Electronics UK, still got RS screwdrivers in the 80s, not worn out. No, me too. Does his favourite screwdriver. That's a Weeha, not an RS, but I think they sold them under their own brand. The Great Scone Divide. Welcome to Britain. Chipmunk 3. Last ever one was 3. What was 3? Have I missed something? Yeah, they did come in pallets. I'm sure of it. Wait, what do you call a CRT there? Well, Jeff, let me tell you about a book I wrote once. Did RF have a pneumatic book? I think they did. Yeah, you're probably right. So a CRT is called a tube. Now, we can't call it a tube. You can't call it a tube because you call a vacuum tube a tube. No. Yeah, you can't call a CRT a tube because you call a valve a tube, shortened form, a vacuum tube. Have I made any sense out of that at all? Yeah. So that's why they're called tubes. So you have your TV tube and a valve, which is a vacuum tube to you. And I once wrote a glossary in the back of a manual that also had a joke in there that I probably shouldn't repeat on here, actually. You can message me privately. A CRT is a type of valve, though. It is indeed. This one is a triode. Most are tetrodes. RS Pro capacitors are awful. Yes, okay, it's not just me then. Don't think it, yeah, if it was going to be something that big, I'd have a Kemet or something. No, Chipmunk, you're exactly right. It's all just words, isn't it? Jammy Telly Dodger. I see. Something like a Jammy Telly Dodger. Waka waka. Tube valve things makes total sense. Probably not. Waka waka. Isn't that the name that Pac-Man made? The noise Pac-Man made? Ah, no, Fozzie Bear. Fozzie Bear, of course. Name dropped your input to the eyeball game recently. No, haven't done that for a while. That's a secret. We'll have that as a video one stage. Yeah. Copley does. Just a long distant memory. It was 40 something years ago, 30 something years ago. Fozzie Bear as well. Good. Now, here's something about the Muppet Show I bet you don't realise. So, Jim Henson apparently couldn't get funding to make the Muppet Show in the US. But Lou Grade, him of Channel 4 fame, saw it in the States and said, we'll make it. But instead of making it in the States, his intention was to bring it all back to the UK and film it here. But then he worked out the film was blooming expensive, so he wanted to videotape it here. But then realised its biggest market was in the States. Therefore, he couldn't videotape it here because it would have been PAL. So he videotaped it in NTSC, and I believe it was actually shot in Sheffield. Somebody will probably say this is an urban myth, but yeah, there we go. It was shot in PAL, in NTSC, using American gear in Sheffield in the UK, apparently. There we are. Quite why he didn't just do it all over there, I have no idea. Red covered, gold lettered RS Pro 4 ampere hour NiCad cells. Yeah, do you remember those? There was, you could still buy them actually. It was like a little sealed lead acid cell. What were they called? They were incredible things. They'd last forever. Oh, what's the name? Somebody will remind me in a minute. Made up of many emergency lighting backpacks. Yeah, they were superb. What were they? It was like a black with a script writing on it. Oh, I can see them now. In fact, about 2 years ago, Cyclone. Well done. The Cyclone battery. Brilliant. Now, about 4 or 5 years ago, my father was struggling to get a correct motorcycle battery for one of his vintage motorbikes. So I 3D printed actually a case, and then I fitted Cyclones inside. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He's still using that battery now. So yeah, we take it that's lasted well. I think there was 3. It was a 6-volt bike, being a BSA, ancient British thing from the 30s, 40s maybe, 40s, maybe 50s, don't know. It doesn't have any rear suspension. Horrible thing to ride. It's got no brakes. Engine's brilliant. Goes like the clappers. Can't stop. Anyway, yeah, but it's 6 volts. I think it's 2 pairs in parallel. But yeah, it's worked really well because modern bike batteries, honestly, they don't make it through the winter, do they? Even if you do put one of those maintenance things on them. The cells weren't that old. I bought them new, and it's only like three, maybe 4 years ago. Looking back at it, it's probably 10. You know, these things slip away from you. I thought I'd only done this, 2 or 3 years ago. I haven't looked on the website, but I will do. But it's on my website. Let's do that now. Let's have a laugh. Let's see when I did that. So andydoz.blogspot.com. TV22 in the search box. See what comes up. Taylor Bush. 9 years ago. So that hasn't run for 9 years. 9. November 2015. Just shows how these things get away from you. I was young then. Oh dear. Oh. Another thing I've been doing is those of you that are on the Discord Dozcord server, there's a link on the website. There is a NOAA feed, NOAA, picking up analog weather pictures from space. There's an antenna on my shed, just the ordinary VHF sort of things. But over the weekend, I upgraded it to digital. To pick up the Russian Meteor satellites. And yeah, I'm just looking at one of the pictures it's generated, and it's very good indeed. We're missing a few bits where the signal dropped out, but it's not bad. I can see all the way over to Budapest, Madrid, Algiers, Athens. Amazing. And it looks cloudy everywhere. It's not just here. I'm glad that's working. The previous Meteor satellite, it packed up, not Christmas just gone, one before. It lost its attitude control system, which was good actually, because you could see when it broke, it looked down the side of the planet, so you could see the curvature of the Earth, which is interesting for somebody in my line of work, but there we are. Ashley, how did you get on with a little Fidelity record player? You'll have to wait till the final episode, coming out soon. Matt Wilkinson, I did see there was an updated image for the SD card. Yes. Now, Matt, one thing, copy your settings.yml file somewhere on another computer, VNC into your receiver, switch it over, and then load up settings.yml from the new image, and then copy the bits across that are the same, notably your position and your gain. Those are the only two things you really need to change, unless you've got a server that's receiving the pictures, which I think you have. Mine now does it to DOSCORD, of course, so that's set. But yeah. And the other thing is to get the beta. It works a treat. I got to listen to the ISS comms from a friend at NASA once, and it was cool to hear the astronauts going about their daily business. That is cool. Yeah. Your gain's on automatic. How'd you get on with that? Mine was awful. But then again, well, no, I haven't got that much gain in it. There's about 3 dB at this end of the cable, and I think there's 10 or 12 at the other end. It's quite a long bit of cable, so it sort of all evens out in the end. ISS comms. Message to the Wilkinsons. Have you ever contacted the ISS? I've sent a packet via it once, packet of data, but that was about my luck. Surprisingly easy to pick them up. Yes, only 500-ish miles straight up. Yeah, it's a bit further than that actually, but yeah, you can do it with a 25-watt VHF transmitter. Matt's done APRS through the ISS. For those not into that, APRS is Automatic Position Reporting System. Yeah, I've received the SSTV as well. In fact, the earlier revision of Raspberry Noah used to do it automatically. Yeah, it's quite good. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with these Meteor pictures. That's quite impressive. Pleased, good. In fact, I wonder if they're coming through on DOSCORD. I haven't checked that bit. Oh, they have. Brilliant. Oh, they are quite impressive. So the Meteor satellite is uses some sort of digital thing. Picked up a few SSTV pics using an IC92. Yeah, unfortunately, I might have been before I knew the Wilkinsons, but once I was doing a demonstration of HF SSTV to some school kids, it was somewhat scantily clad when it arrived. Yeah. Embarrassing. There we go. Trying to get kids interested in technology. Mind you, sex sells, I suppose, doesn't it? I bet they remember that to this day. They probably do. Oh, yes, here's a Martin's one frame coming in colour. But it wasn't until it got to the nipples that I knew I was in trouble. Switch off. Oh, dear. There used to be a local CCTV net, CCTV, slow scan TV net on VHF locally here back in the 90s. I think I used to have a go at that. They were interested in something. They are us now. No, they'd be a bit younger than me. Mind you, they've been there. How old was I at the time? I was probably 30. So yeah, they'd be. Well, they'd be in their 30s now, wouldn't they? No, 40. Oh God. Yeah, they'd be in their 40s by now. Oh, don't get old, folks. Yeah, it doesn't look bad, does it, Matt? I'm very pleased with those. Nicely detailed as well. You can click to zoom in. Was it? It was what day was it, Stuart? Was it a Monday night? I could be missing it now. And it was on 144 point something FM. I remember it well. It was good fun. There was some beautiful pictures. One guy used to go out and take proper photos. Must have been in the early days of digital cameras, I suppose. No, I don't. I remember I had a cubicle. Was it a cubicle quad? Yeah, 2 meter cubicle quad on top of my house on a plastic mast thing. Because one of them was in Malvern and he was a bit scratchy with me, but he used to work a treat with that. It's made out of that copper strip. It's a copper strip, but really well. You know, there's a thought. Copper strip. That's a job for another day. TV magazine, yeah, that's a sad loss, wasn't it? I remember going just as a kid when, you know, I'd been fascinated with TV repair since, I don't know. In fact, I do remember because it was the same year CB radio got legalized. So in this country, which is 1981, and RG11 had its red cap. And it got frame collapsed. And the man came out and he goes, "Oh, it's got a red cap in it." Absolutely transfixed. With the bloke that fixed the telly knew what I was going to do from that day on. And I did for many, many years. The TV magazine, I used to go and buy it from the newsagents from the age of 10 or 11. Wenlock TVDX, I used to know a bloke in Bendigo who swore by the cubicle quad. He even used a quad beam for 70 centimetres ATV. You see, an antenna is just an antenna at the end of the day, isn't it? If it's got gain and it's measurable and provable, why would one type be any better than another? Don't know. It's like people go on about, you know, a Sirio quarter wave vertical is so much better than somebody else's quarter wave vertical. And as long as the thing's doing its job and presenting the right impedance, and it doesn't fall to pieces, of course, that's where the money goes. But one doesn't get out any better than the other, really. You were 10 when you read it as well. Yeah, there you go. Brilliant. Roger Bunny was somewhat local. Now, there was a guy over in Gloucester that sort of took over from Les Laurie Jones for a little while. And his sons took over their business. He used to fix tellies and the odd microwave oven over in Gloucester. And I'd sort of met him a couple of times because I was over in Gloucester and I was fixing it was a Mankey rental. It was a Bush TV22A, and it had taken out one side of its frame pair. Was it tip 31, tip 32, something like that? And I didn't have one. Popped into the shop and I said, you know, I was Andy from Harrods, not Harrods back then, it would have been, anyway, it would have been somebody, David, I suppose. And I said, have you got a tip 32A I can purchase from you? I'm out on call and I haven't got one in the van. And he said, you can have that, son. Thank you very much. What are they called? Mr. Laurie Johns, yeah. Roger Bunny, he did a lot of TVDX as well, I seem to remember. QFH. Now, Matt, that antenna project we were talking about, yes, I made progress. Oh, I've 3D printed some doohickeys because I fixed my 3D printer the other week. So it's not very good, but they're sort of a bit of a work in progress. So, yeah, we'll have a pop at that at some stage. I've got to refine it a little bit yet, but yeah, it's coming. What's that guy's name? I can picture the shop now. It's just by a zebra crossing in Long Levens. Anyway, there we are. I got interested in electronics when I was about 12. My dad took me along to see a friend of his that had a light aircraft unit that sent tones like CTCSS to turn on the lights. Brilliant. Used to correspond with Roger. He also used to work at Southern and moved to STV. Now, am I right in saying Southern had the finest teletext outside of London? Didn't they used to reclock it, and everybody else just used to rebroadcast it? Or am I mistaken? Didn't really get involved with telly much. It was much more radio sort of chap, really. Frank, but from Swindon. Wasn't Frank, and he didn't live in Swindon. I even knew where he lived in Gloucester. Oh, what was his name? Come on, brain. Shouldn't have thrown out all my TV mags. Les was brilliant. Les Laurie Jones. How many kids these days are developing an interest in electronics beyond microcontrollers and code? The thing is, especially with things, I mean, Arduino is brilliant. How old is Arduino now? That's got to be getting on for 10 or 15 years old, if not 20. But it's an absolutely brilliant idea. I mean, PIC was good, but there were too many stumbling blocks to it, really. And PIC Basic was all right, I suppose. What was that other one called? But Arduino really knocked the nail in with that. And it made me do things. I had to learn C, but yeah, I suppose that makes you sort of lazy, doesn't it? C rather than assembly. But all the tools were there, and they were free, and you could just go out and get a board, and it was available in Maplins and everywhere else. And it was really good. Payne's TV. Now Payne's TV was bought by a mate of mine. And he was still there years later. We had a bit of a falling out of a set of VT11 heads. There you go. He wasn't much of an engineer either, but anyway. Payne's. Yeah, that was right around the back when it by the sex shop. Yeah, Mike, you see, by the time you've got something in your microcontroller, you've got to make it do something outside of flashing an LED to move a servo or something. That's where the electronics comes in. People aren't teaching or learning the analog stuff, though. Yeah, they just stick it into an ADC and then work on it in the code, I suppose. Yeah. Jeff, have you ever seen a large LED volume wall like they used on The Mandalorian? Going to be on set with one recently. They're fascinating. The sensors, the light levels, the occasional heat. Ain't it? Heat is something else. Hey, Rich, how are you? Yeah, the heat that comes over those things is incredible. And that's for that dome thing you've got in the States. That's something else. How many kilowatts of hour is that throwing away? ESPs and modules. But that's how it starts, Matt. You know, it's got to start somewhere, hasn't it? At least people have got an interest, and whether that leads them into electronics or leads them into coding, it's better than sitting here being a YouTuber, isn't it? Or an influencer, or I don't know. People need to do things. It's important that people do things, and I'm happy people are doing things. Even if it's modular, it's something. People are doing something. I think it's a thing. My interest started when I was 5. Dad's Technics amp had a dodgy volume controls. We opened it up. It never got fixed. Insides were fascinating. I used to buy stuff from jumble sales. That was, yeah. I used to buy stuff, broken things from jumble sales, because we had one. I used to live. I grew up in London, and we used to have one telly that was rental. It was a black and white thing. I believe it was a Philips. It came from Siemens of Carlton. But yeah, it was. So if you wanted a cassette recorder or a tape recorder, you know, it was. I'd come back with Philips things from jumble sales and get a belt off the Magic Eye Tube and things like that, because I was learning how I didn't kill myself. I had no idea. But yeah, you get something that you could get going and it cost you, 15 or 20 pence back in the 70s, and then you'd have the difficulty of lugging it home. But yeah, that's how I sort of got the hang of valves a bit quick and what not to poke. And then got us slightly in trouble with the post office. ESP32, he's not surprised, it's only £1. I noticed they've gone up on eBay of late, but you still get them from China for £1.60 odd each. Stupid cheap. If your code doesn't involve an NE555, I don't care. Now there's a chip I hate. Probably because I've blown so many up as a kid, because I could never get... What was a guy named that wrote the books where the circuits never worked? Little books. Oh, R.A. Penfold. His stuff was... I suspect I just did it wrong. What about the shop on the Escort Road by the roundabout? Don't remember that one. 20p in the 70s, yeah. R.A. Penfold. Never worked. Post office trouble story. Which one was that? So many stories. People keep saying I should write a book. Used to get stuff from recycling centre. Yeah, there's some places that I work in a lovely place at Cardiff. It's in between the wasteland that's sort of like marshes and the dump, and you can actually go in there and they flog you stuff. They've got like an area, quite whether they have electrical stuff in there, I don't know. My boss Ian says they do or they have done, because he bought a drum kit from there. Obviously not electric, but unless it was an electric drum kit, I don't know. But yeah, they have all sorts of weird and wonderful stuffs in there. National Radiological Protection Board. What did you post? It's like that thing I got. Where is it? That's always good. It always frightens the living out of people. Where is it? It's in there. Yes, this radio compass. That's interesting because it's quite lively. In fact, I'll just come over here. Oh. I apologise for that break in transmission. I tripped on the wire. Yeah, the trim phone wasn't particularly radioactive, was it, really? But this thing... So 1 Geiger counter, 1 Geiger tube. Give it a second. Does quake. So yeah, can you hear that? Just clicking away a bit. But if we get this near it, it's quite a lively sort of thing. I'll try and show you the meter. Look. It doesn't seem as radioactive as it once was. Perhaps it's gone off a bit. Because that's a half-life, isn't it? It's probably made in the 40s, so maybe 50s. What's Radium's first daughter product? Radon, isn't it? It's probably not worth breathing that anyway. Oh, you were legitimately posting trim phones. Good God. Won't sell electronics and computers. Oh, there's a massive skip large enough that you'd have no chance of getting out of the thing. That's wicked, isn't it? It is wicked. What a waste. Thanks, Chris. Take it easy, my friend. I just mentioned tritium. Well, they were tritium rather than radium then. It would seem to be, yeah, of course it was 70s. You probably still got radium anyway. Eldest seems to have retained some of it. How many kids have you got, Chris? And you got a call. I used to be more radioactive as well now, but podcast active. Very good. I haven't seen a Geiger counter since secondary school science. 2. Well done, Chris. I've only got the 1. She's a doctor. A doctor of material science. Tritium and zinc sulfide. They'll have all decayed now. I mean, it's only got a half-life of about 10 years, isn't it, tritium? They must be well on their way to no longer wanting a glow. I think in the States they have quite, because you can still buy a tritium sort of like signage, and I think you have to sign a license when you buy it and let them know what address it's going to be installed in, and then when its life expired, you have to send it back to them so to have it safely disposed of. 20 years ago, you see. Even then, that was 2000 and something. They'd have been well on their way. Good evening, David. How are you? Okay, thanks. 30. Thanks for making me feel old. Look, it was 10 years ago I did that blasted thing. Happens every day. Hope the day's been good. Actually, it has. I fixed a lot of bits today that were niggling, which is good. And tomorrow I don't have to be physically in work, which is good because I've actually got a hospital appointment tomorrow and one the week after. And but anyway, yeah, especially if the weather's going to be nasty, I'd rather not be spending 2 hours in a car. You prevented a house fire and got bored? Oh, I missed something again. Rich, yeah, depending on location and weather for that matters. Not the same event. No, I've lost the thread, obviously. I got to hop out. Jeff, thank you so much for coming. Yeah, do join us again. Rich, if it's Kings, I'll probably trudge down. Yeah. Always good to have a curry. Always good to have a curry. What was the post office story that Jeff was on about? Don't remember that one. So many stories. I did have to, I'd ordered some antenna bits actually for from AliExpress recently. And I did feel a bit guilty because they said they'd been delivered and they weren't. So I just said, look, hang on a minute, this hasn't been delivered. But we posted them, therefore it's not their fault, case closed. I thought, that's rough. So I appealed against it. And then they, they were saying, oh, well, you know, it's shown as delivered. And then they gave me a tracking number, which was a genuine post office number. But they didn't have any record of it. And then just as I was about to get really shirty with them and thought, I'll just get my money back from PayPal or whatever, there was a knock on the door that evening and the stuff turned up. So it was rather late. And I did mislay me. One story is it got stuck in customs. Then the next story was, we've delivered it. And it was just a load of bunkum. Just hopefully, I've had fairly good experience with AliExpress. But yeah, there we are. Is this going to be a regular feature? I'd like to think so, but I've got to be a little bit careful because just in case you're not aware, there's a guy called Odge the Irish TV Workshop, who does a very similar thing. This is a blatant pirate copy of what he does, and I wouldn't want to step on his toes. So there's enough time in the week for us both to have one. So Monday night works really well for me because the dear lady wife is out at work. So I can come in here and tinker, but that does reduce the tinkering time. Mind you, on a Monday, I've normally driven, 4 hours today, so I don't really want to be fixing stuff perhaps, but yeah. So yes, it could become a regular feature. I will contact John Joe so we don't step on one another, because there's plenty of this to go around. In fact, I was in a fight with Amazon about a spendy order of special sockets. Very nice. That never showed up. Did it not? You see, Amazon are pretty good normally. I have to say the best people to deal with are eBay. Although I have noticed said converters, there isn't an item has arrived but is not as described button anymore. So I will be querying them tomorrow. I've messaged the seller. We'll see what they say. So yeah, Amazon. Yeah, I don't generally go there, but there we are. Sometimes they've got stuff and you need it in a hurry. What do? Vintage Electronics as well. He's on nearly every day. I don't think I'm aware of that. Can you at him in for me, please, Sarah? And I shall look it up. You found it in a hedge 3 weeks after the replacement. You see, that's not your fault, though, is it? Oh, yeah, don't want to sell on eBay anymore. Just ridiculous people. I mean, I buy on eBay, and I am, I wouldn't dream of ripping somebody off. And in fact, there was a guy I bought the last tin of Rubber Roller Restorer from, and never showed up. And so he said, and he was obviously a little seller. And then, blow me, one turned up, cut the three. He says, terribly sorry, blah, blah, blah. And then the second one, then obviously the replacement turned up the day after. So I said, look, here's the money. I've got 2 tins and we'll get on with it. So, yeah. Yeah, it's a shame because eBay used to be, used to be all right to sell on, but now they just, yeah. They hate sellers and bully them, yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. That's bad. You don't need that rubbish. But some sellers are just difficult. Some buyers are just, I don't know with it. But considering the money they make, you'd think they'd have a better way of dealing with it. Facebook Marketplace seems to work remarkably well. You always get idiots that never turn up. It's a bit like, back in the day when I had my shop and I advertised stuff in the paper. And you get people, oh, I want to come and see that this evening or whatever, and they just not show up. So, yeah, but I've met a lot of very nice people. In fact, one of them was on here the other day, who bought a couple of computers from me. I didn't want much money for them. I just wanted them out of my the wife's way, if truth be known. But there we go. So he had those off me, and he's made a skimming server for ham radio, and it was really nice to see him. And he joins me on this channel because he said, my wife will never believe me if I go home and tell her the amount of kit you've got. Anyway, so obviously she's letting off the hook a bit now. The amount of vintage amps and tape players we've seen in the last 6 months has increased 5-fold at least. Hey, look, it's all good for business. Used to do restoration kits for vintage phones. Can't be bothered now. I still have nightmares. Yeah, you see, especially things like that. You'd think the person that's, they are people. Somebody that is restoring something generally has done the legwork and read up on it. It's generally somebody of the more mature years, like ourselves, and they, whilst they might not know exactly what they're doing, they're generally put in the legwork. How many times do I get people, especially back in the website days, before I put the comments on moderated, where people used to say, I need this fixed, but I don't want to pay much, or I don't want to pay anything, or I don't, how do I fix this? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. It's too much money. Well, I will help anybody. And I always think it's quite important that the knowledge I have is shared and goes on. Like you said about coding, but if somebody does come up against, oh, hang on a minute, this FET doesn't, well, yeah, but it's because you've not got the bias right, or you're trying to drive it with a 3.3 volt signal or a 5 volt signal, something like that. They don't understand, but we can tell them, and that knowledge then goes on. Because otherwise, when I drop down dead, what's going to happen to all this kit? It's just going to end up in the skip, in it, at the tip. And yeah, I think that's a bit sad, really. So it's nice that we do see younger people a bit interested, and why I am so very happy to sit down with people and sort of point them in the right direction. Oh, you're on about the designs, but it's nice to restore an old unit every now and again. Yes. It's a good place despite eBay. Yeah. Oh, Radio Cruncher. Is that Gas Bracket? For those of you of a certain age that remembers things on in London in the 70s. Is it Radio Cruncher? Or is he Vintage Radio Repair or something? But it used to be known as Gas Bracket. I think it's a wonderful nickname. Big issue is finding good techs who actually care about their work. There's no problem in finding good techs, really. The problem is being able to pay them for the good work they do. And that's why I don't do this for a living. That's why I design spacecraft, because this wouldn't pay very well, perhaps. Although maybe I'm tempted sometimes. I don't know. I quite fancy if I could get this little workshop. People always come in here when they do visit and they say, one, they go, my God, it's a mess. Yes, it's because you can't see this bit. And the second bit is it's tiny. I can almost touch that camera from here. And it's not very big. I'm sure a lot of people work in smaller spaces, but it's just full of kit. And it looks bigger on telly than it is in real life. It looks like I could stretch out in here and I can't. But yeah, if I could make this double the size, and yeah, anyway, there we go. Radio Cruncher, he does streams a lot, or am I lost? I have no idea. Payment isn't an issue, it's finding people. Maybe we should talk. Although I'm not really looking for a job at the minute. Plenty of dodgy sellers as well as buyers on eBay, yeah. It is. Moss Isley. Design lab is 900 feet. Repair lab is 3,000. Those are the days. I used to have... How big was my lab at the Vision? Chris will remember the warehouse. I think that was 1,000 square feet. Simple, sparky, and I get frustrated about lack of quality. What, of workmanship? See plenty of that. Plenty of it. Allegedly professional people. Chris, good CCTV in the warehouse. God, it was awful. Do you remember the intercom thing? What was it called? The Duke Ellington. This nickname of the Duke Ellington. Because one day it ran on, they had this intercom thing and it was ancient and cobbled up out of bits. And it had like post office switches on. Do you remember them rockers with all the leaves? And one day a bit of the screening fell off or something and it picked up Duke Ellington. So it was just known as the Duke Ellington. Get him on the Duke Ellington forever on. Storage for stock, way too much. There was this pile, amongst other things. Both workmanship and bloody materials. Yeah. Talk to me about it. I've got a broken dimmer switch that's not 12 months old at the moment. What a pain. Keys and switches. Yeah. Blimey, Ashley, you're only a kid. Keys bend the contacts. Switches pivot. Yeah, they did bend the contacts. My bad. I have no idea. GPO Geek 2. Well, there you go. Well, obviously, we used to flog telephone kits. Keys. Yes, I did know that, you know. Lost in the mists of time. They were beautifully made. Were they made by ITT or Canon or somebody? Sure, it was ITT, I think. The knowledge passing on is important. No good at dying with me, is there? No good at dying with me. Many contractors made them. Ah, there you go. I think my uncle Dave might have had to have some, might have worked briefly for Telecom, because he used to come by these things and bring them around, dials and, you know, the mechanical telephone dials that we used to have. He used to bring around slightly broken ones, and I used to straighten them out and get them going again. Wonderful. Yeah, nice to see you, Chris. Thank you very much for joining. Don't be a stranger. Come round sometime. In fact, if you're only just north, what's it, at Cardiff, we'll have to have a meet up. There we go. Sarcasm mode turning back on again. Right, it is nearly 10 o'clock and it's time for my bed and I need a cup of tea. So, yeah, we'll probably leave it there, I think. 106 minutes. How have we managed that? That is quite impressive. Yeah, Rich, see you Wednesday. That'll be lovely. Weather permitting. Cheers, David. Go easy. Right, and all it remains, the sarcasm, the gap between our senses of humour, yeah. I can sledge it. Right, click like, subscribe, do all that rubbish, and I'll see you very soon. You're on Doz's Television Workshop. Cheers now, bye. Where's the button to switch it off? That one there.